Hello, everybody. It's TJ Denzer here, Senior News Editor for ShackNews.com. And as always, once a week, your host, purveyor, and supplier of fine indies on the live stream that we call Indie-licious. I have an awesome episode for you today. I'm not going to be playing something, no. The sounds, the music that you were just listening to come from none other than the Darkside Detective. This is a mystery point-and-click game made by the Spooky Doorway devs, and they are making a third one in the series, which I will link right now, actually, because you guys should have a look at it when you get a chance. Maybe not now, because I got to sit down to an interview with these folks and we talked all about the upcoming game. We talked about Backside of the Moon, how the Darkside Detective series has evolved over time. We talked about last year's The Seance of Blake Manor, which was an awesome game, and number 12 on Shack News' top 25 indie games of 2025. We loved that game. I've loved the Darkside Detective games before it, and I'm proud to be able to share this interview with you guys. I hope you enjoy it. We are going to run an ad for Shack News, and right after that, we're going to go right into the interview, so stay tuned. First off, thank you guys for joining me for this. This is awesome. We just did a feature on the demo. I had a really good time with it. I'm a big fan of point and clicks, going all the way back to like even before the Sierra days, back when we were writing prompts in a in a little text box.
Nice.
Yeah. Good times.
That was, I think, how I started coding. It was Find the Wombat. It was like text-based adventure that we did in like second year or something.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and kick it off. We are here with Spooky Doorway, who has been working on the latest entry in their Darkside Detective series, The Backside of the Moon. This is the third game in a series, and it's another game after kind of a winner from last year, the Seance of Blake Manor. How does it feel to be this far along in game design? Did you ever think that you would be 4 games in at this point in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us thought we would still even have a company at this point. And even now, like, our company motto is just fumbling forwards. We kind of presume that we're going to fail and people are going to just call us out sometime soon. We're going to figure out we have no idea what we're doing. And it'll all just stop. We'll have to go back to our real lives. But until then, we will just keep fumbling forwards. Yeah, I think like this is obviously back to Darkside after doing Blake Manor last year. But games are hard. Sorry. If you want me to try it, I don't know, do something with this thing. I don't know what to do. But yeah, 3D games are hard, long to make, and deductive games as well take a huge amount of like brains and big teams and just brain melting. So it was really nice to just go back to doing Darkside again because it was just familiar. It was fun. It wasn't like dark and spooky, and yeah, we got to just kind of jump back in and be silly for a little while. It's really nice.
Also, we had an unexpected delivery
about
a year ago.
Yeah.
And so as he was hitting whatever, like the age where he could walk around and demand attention, we just wanted to move on to something a little bit easier, just to bridge that gap.
Yes,
so we figured out what we're going to do.
An unexpected third child, yes. Whenever we have a big deadline, I always seem to get pregnant. But no more. This is the last one. No more.
Let's go back to that first one really quick, that 2017 game, because like the Darkside Detective has a very specific sort of vibe to it. It's comedic, it's puzzle solving, it's also a little bit creepy. And like, how did you decide on like the vibe that you wanted to go with when you were coming up with that initial game?
I think it's very generous to think that we decided anything.
Yeah.
We just iterated.
Fumbling forwards.
We iterated a lot. I mean, we tried, like, in terms of story and stuff alone, we tried like having what was going to be like one long game or like one story that's broken into 5 chapters, like the Telltale stuff, and ultimately we landed on doing a series of sort of more or less standalone cases. I just sort of felt better, and it let us tell a kind of wider range of stuff. Kind of ate more of the horror shows and that kind of stuff that we liked growing up. But it was just sort of iterating on things we found what sort of seemed right. And the same with the tone. I think the tone evolved as the project evolved.
Yeah, we kind of wanted to do that Monster of the Week thing because you didn't need to really commit to anything, which is it gives you just like space to play around with more and more silly tropes and funny, reflections on things that we have grown up with. I would have said it's like kind of how people in Ireland in the 80s thought that America was like from watching TV shows. And so the TV shows that were being delivered on our tellies were things like Twin Peaks and like Erie, Indiana, the X-Files and those kind of things. And I guess like we were just ripping off that really.
We also were playing more adventure games back then as sort of research as well. And we kept finding that we'd wander off, like we get to the end of a session and we wouldn't get to play for another week or two, and then we come back, we have no idea what we're doing and stuff. And so it sort of naturally made sense for us to try move towards doing. It felt right to us to move towards something that actually is playable in just one session, or maybe 2 short sessions. So sort of fitted people with busier lives, and that's where we were finding ourselves at that sort of time.
Yeah, just brain dead people.
Yeah,
and like
rushed out of humanity.
And like, it's really interesting the way that you have the whole Darkside Detective series set up, because it is an episodic setup where like each episode is a different case. You certainly have to worry about like the occasional thread here and there that crosses over, but what is it like to kind of start over from the beginning with each case each time when you're making these games?
It's hard because you really want to make certain that you're treading new ground each time. That you're not kind of using the same jokes. I mean, I've written an awful lot of fire extinguisher jokes.
Yeah. So many bins.
Paul keeps copying me.
Yeah.
So, it's hard in a way because you want to make sure that everything's fresh and that like you're consistent across the various. Like we've done 20 something cases now at this point with Darkside.
I think it's also though like it lets us to iterate, like because we learn from every case that we do. And we learn the things that are going to go wrong. Like we learn about what specific locations, even though in maybe like a TV show, something might work really well. But then when you go and actually put it in and try and do a game design around it, you find that it's actually like doesn't work at all. Like we really wanted to do that by hard one, which was like we obviously did like in the mall. And then like you go and you actually do it and you're like, oh, every place looks the same. Like the same with like the high school one, it's like everything looks the same and things have specific locations that they're always in.
That's a bigger problem.
And that becomes a bigger problem. It's like, well, you're going to go to the shop class if you want to get a hammer. You're going to go to the hardware store if you want to get you kind of learn then from that the type of locations that seem like they would be a fun place to have a weird spooky thing may not necessarily be the right kind of space to put this kind of adventure. Both from a puzzle perspective and also from an art perspective of like what's interesting and what seems unique, especially for the type of art that we're doing, which is like very like big pixels. It's hard to get that kind of nuance in the locations and stuff. They don't transfer that well. So by doing like all the different work, like there's many different iterations from us of learning what works and what doesn't work, and then hopefully that builds to us getting better at it. And hopefully the puzzle's getting better, and hopefully like the sound's getting better. Whoops.
I definitely think that we got better. Like in the first game, we did 9 different cases. Some of them are different complexity and length, but like if we done one story, we would have learned one set of things. Doing 9 of them means we learned a huge amount more and built up an awful lot more about the world and everything. So it really benefited us in a lot of different ways.
Like, say, for example, we were talking about Red Manor, but to go back to that, it was a lot of like me tapping the Ted Lasso believe sign as we were doing it, because it was one big story that had to come together, and it took a huge amount of game dev to get to the point where we could kind of feel like it was coherent and can feel like that, like that people were able to understand it, were able to understand enough of the mystery for the story to come together and for the game to come together and the mechanics to come together. Whereas Darkside, you don't
You're
have
a couple
that.
of weeks in,
You know,
we start testing.
Yeah, exactly. Even
if
now,
it makes sense, if the clues are there and
that's largely
the
it.
player can figure out what they're looking for at a certain point.
Yeah, the loop,
But
the fun is
it was
identified
probably
pretty
2
easy.
years before you could really do anything with Blake Manor, like fully test individual bits. But to get that old sense of like, can a person get to the end and start making guesses about who the culprit is was a huge amount of work to get there. That all the strands kind of started coming together. And once it hit that point, it very rapidly improved from that to getting it released over the course of I think like 9 months or something like that.
Yeah.
It went from that like it's now playable to it's good or whatever. But yeah, there's an awful lot of like with Darkside you can play playing a case within a month.
The way that you design these games, I'm always curious about this, especially when it comes to puzzle games, just because you have to make a compelling puzzle, you have to make a story that drives that puzzle, and then for you guys in particular, you have jokes in there. Like, and where do you begin? Like, do you come up with a joke that sounds funny to you that you want to put in something? Do you come up with the idea for the basis of the case? Do you come up with a puzzle that you think you'd like to explore? How does that process work?
Every case is different.
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes it starts with a silly pun. Sometimes it starts with location. Sometimes it starts with like a type of puzzle that we want to do. Sometimes it starts like it can start with really anything. It's just something that we felt like we wanted to explore. Like, or sometimes it comes up with like, we want to do something with this character. So let's do that, or explore this kind of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, so every case sort of starts different. Sometimes it does start with here's a fun pun for the title, what we do with that. Sometimes it starts with like one of the first things we did years ago, 2015 or something like that, was we made a big list of all the Americana, all the locations and stuff that like meant America, felt like America to us, and go, oh, a subway, that's a cool thing. Let's put a case in there and like, that kind of stuff. And you sort of build up a case that way. Sometimes it is a really stupid joke, but you go, oh, well, this would be kind of fun. Let's see what we can do with this idea. And I think it's important that they do all come from different places, because one thing we really want to avoid is sort of stumbling into a formula. We want to make certain that that all cases feel fresh and different, and they don't follow the same beats and such. A big part of what we hope happens in a Darkside case is it starts off here, and you have no idea where that story is going to go before the end of it. In the best cases, you're very much in the best cases you're very much figuring it out as you kind of like the story's unfolding and kind of catching you by surprise as you go along through it.
And like Officer Dooley, that character is very funny to me. I like I like Dooley. I'm curious, like the sort of partner dynamic that the two characters have, where like Officer Dooley kind of follows him around as kind of wouldn't say the voice of reason. He's just kind of a voice, but
yeah.
Was it always meant to be like that buddy cop scenario, or did Officer Dooley just kind of develop over time?
So that's one of the first things. Like there was a Darkside demo that was put together at Game Jam that I myself and Treasa were involved in, and it was just McQueen investigating. It was real, like it was 3 or 4 screens of what became the pilot case, the Malice and Wonderland case. But it really felt like it was missing. Like we wanted McQueen to not be the comic relief. We didn't want you playing an idiot, which is one of the kind of characters you often have in point and clicks. Is you're playing a goofball, sort of stumbles through the whole thing. We didn't want that to be the character you're playing. We didn't want him to be kind of mean or anything like that. But we needed, as a comedy game, we wanted there to be a kind of constant source of comedy. And so we decided we wanted to stick in a sidekick. And that sidekick could be the sort of comic relief character. And like McQueen, they bounce off each other and stuff. And having Dooley there, McQueen also evolved to be, a bit of a goof as well. But he is very much the straight man in the role. I think it works much better because you're playing a guy who is competent, who's going to solve these sort of mysteries as they come up. So, yeah, I mean, as to who Dooley was, we sort of had that idea, or I had that idea from pretty early on, that he was going to be like this kind of lovable, well-meaning sort of, but kind of useless buddy. I did want to have a buddy cop thing. I wanted to be just 2 friends trying to, do right in the world. I don't know. I just felt like there was a need for just a good like well-meaning friendship in media. That's kind of what that was sort of the inspiration to sort of put that out there.
It's kind of effective too, because like without Dooley, you would have to fill so much more space with dialogue, and you only have one necessary. Sometimes you might only have one character, McQueen, to bounce that stuff off of, and so Dooley is fun. He fills space that would otherwise be kind of lonesome, and where McQueen would have to make the jokes himself. I really like watching it bounce back and forth between the two. We're pausing for just a second, ladies and gentlemen. We have a ad break coming up on Twitch in 10 seconds, and I would hate for you to miss any part of this interview. So stay tuned. We will be right back. We're going to let this ad play, and then we're going to continue the interview. All right, friends. Ad break over. Thank you for your patience. We're getting back to the interview now. Enjoy.
Yeah, and it's a thing. There's a few cases we do where we do remove Dooley from it, or even sometimes we remove McQueen. Like we I like to try and play around the formula that way, but there's always a hesitancy whenever we kind of do it because we're like, oh no, you can't take Dooley out. Like he's the magic glue, and I think that his role is really important. But I also think part of the world, what works is to show that there's a wide range of characters, and a lot of people seem to be fans of the characters, the sort of secondary leads like the Blood Wolves or Rax and those kind of characters who tend to take central stage for a small case here or there. But definitely, yeah, it helps flesh out the world. It helps give a sort of sense of what the rest of the world is like, and you get a feeling for who McQueen is by bouncing off Dooley, and I think you get a lot of the heart of the world by seeing McQueen and Dooley kind of support each other for different things. And I think, yeah, it does definitely help make even the most non-interesting of scenes. It gives them a little bit of something, you know. Like I think one of the classic ones is again the pilot case where you go into the tiny little wardrobe and like you're thinking around, it's like, did you follow me in here? Yes. And you can have what would maybe otherwise be a very boring scene of just like it's one tiny room and there's 4 or 5 things to click on. It adds kind of, a good joke and it sort of enlivens up that space and makes that space fun and funny in its own sort of right.
He kind of also makes for a pretty great hint system because, like, a lot of puzzle games have like these things where like you can reveal little bits of what the answer is to the whatever puzzle or problem you're looking at. And in this game, like you have options for Dooley to be that. And
we probably don't do that as much as maybe we should, but like definitely McQueen being able to explain things to Dooley being able to ask questions or kind of comment on stuff has definitely been helpful to have. And the way we use items and stuff is a similar thing. We can drop it on itself. It gives you a bit of information and such. We try to make certain that there's enough hints throughout a case to kind of guide you, keep you moving forward without like holding your hand too much, but also not making it too much of a challenge because it is meant to be end of the workday, end of the week, sit down and like instead of popping on sitcom, you pop on an episode of Mystery of the Darkside. And so they're not designed to be the most taxing things in the world. They're designed to be a challenge, but not like a total head mess. I can't think of a polite way to.
That brings up an interesting question of like, how do you decide when a certain puzzle is complete? How do you decide if it's too hard, too easy, or if it's just like right at that right spot?
Usually it's testing. It's testing with lots of people. We do various rounds of testing. We do, when we have the white box thing, we kind of walk through it as a team. So first of all, we design it, and myself and Trash bet the idea around, and then we kind of write up and we talk through it with, you do a poll, first to make sure that is, as Treasa said earlier, it's feasible to draw it. And then if there's very bits that aren't, we go back and kind of rework those. Then we move to a white box stage, and again we kind of run through that. But then once we're sort of happy enough, we run through that with a few more people, and once we're happy enough, we build sort of stripped down version of it. Doesn't maybe have as many background hotspots or many dialogue options, but it has all the golden path text, all the clues and such. And again, that gets tested, and then the final thing goes off, gets tested a bunch. We iterate that, and we test that, and it's just when you have enough people. I mean, enough people could even just be something like 10. It doesn't have to be hundreds. But if 10 people play it and they all kind of get through it, okay, at least you have some idea you're on the right thing. If 10 people play it, 10 of them struggle, you need to change it. If it's 50-50, you probably want to kind of push the gauge a little bit towards making it easier. And it's not giant teams of players or people testing it, but every case is tested by a bunch of people, and we base it differently of that. And you never get it right. It doesn't matter if we make a thing too easy. There's always people who complain that it's too hard. Some people need a walkthrough. Some people will complain the game is too easy. You can never get that right. But if you get a feeling that enough people are kind of hitting the right space, then hopefully the majority of people will also find that it works for them.
I found that the tab button is my best friend when I am stumped. Being able to see everything interactable on the screen at once is very nice.
That wasn't always there. That was only added. That was added much later into the development. I think actually as part of season 2's rolling out. But yeah, we added that. It's a nice easy thing, because one thing we want to avoid is pixel hunting. Is someone not being in advance because they didn't know to click on one little thing. And it's something we kind of carried over into Blake Manor as well. It's like the fun isn't necessarily finding the which of the things you can kind of click on. It's figuring out what to do with that clue,
With this being the third game in the series, and with other games under your belt, what would you say as you go into the backside of the moon, or as you continue to work on it? What would you say is the most valuable thing in game design that you've learned?
Probably test early, test often. It's not particularly groundbreaking or breaking advice, but it is. The further down the road you get with something that doesn't work, the more time and money you've wasted, and more you've got to throw out, and more you've got to rebuild. So the sooner you can get testing that and get a feel if it's working or not working, that's really valuable. Also, sometimes trust yourself. Sometimes you do get a bunch of feedback, and everyone disagrees with something. You sometimes got to go, I don't care. I think this is the right thing to do. And sometimes it's sort of a shot in the dark, but it's really important to just know what it is you're trying to build and who. We got lots of, in terms of Darkside, we got lots of people early on looking for animations and VO and all that sort of stuff. And we did try them, and we said this adds nothing to the experience. It takes away from it. And so we stuck to our guns and released it as the faceless animation, as voiceless game that it is. And I think it's done better as a result of it.
You mentioned several times how Blake Manor was a unique challenge for the team, how it brought about a lot of unique sort of problems that you needed to solve. Even after that, seeing the response to it and seeing how people liked it on a long enough timeline, do you see yourselves going back to a game like that again? I
mean, we definitely wouldn't rule anything out. That's all I can say at the moment. We're exploring various things. Definitely more mystery games. Mystery games are the area we like working in, whether they're kind of skinned as mysteries like Darkside is, or whether there's actually mystery mechanics there. I mean, I guess we'll just see. I can't really say much more than that at the moment.
With this many games in the series, do you have a particular favorite case out of what you've done so far?
I quite like the Tales in the Darkside one, because it's a bit of a cheat because it's 3 different cases, but it's nice to sort of show little snippets of what's going on in the world. I thought that was a fun one for that reason. Yeah, I'll go with that one. But I think there's very few of them that I don't like. Still I still think they all have little bits that really work in them. So I kind of like them all for different reasons. But yeah, I think that's a really nice one, because I'm a big fan of showing and it's obviously inspired by the Treehouse of Horror stuff from The Simpsons. And I always love those, because I love just seeing the weird little stories and things that are going on in that world. So that was a really fun one to work on. It was a bit of a nightmare. It was too big, but we overscoped it. But I think it was a really nice thing to have done once.
It's a difficult time out there as far as just the video game industry goes. There's a lot. It's hard to get your name out there. It's hard to get eyes on your game. It's hard to get people to play your game. As a developer, what would you say to new devs that want to maybe get their foot in the door, want to try their hand at this and break into the field?
That's a really hard one because like it's hard for me. It's hard for me to talk about what it's like to enter the industry now because I'm not entering the industry now. We're lucky in that we're a little bit established. We have connections with publishers. We know people we can kind of reach out to and talk about things. I can't guarantee that will, always turn into people who are coming up behind us. I just don't know them. Like I know there's things like TikTok and all that, and I don't know how any of those work. So, and I'm sure there's other avenues for funding stuff that I don't have a clue how they work. And it's the same for say the wave people are ahead of us. They knew how to work the industry that they had come up in, and didn't really know how to navigate the industry that we came up in. And I think probably the most useful thing is to look around and like for me, what I did is I started running game jams. I got involved in the game jam scene and got to know a bunch of people because you could make a small game with a bunch of people. You just have to find people with skills that complemented your skills. And so that was a really good way of doing that. I don't know if game jams still, I think they do still run and stuff now, but it's not necessarily the right way to do things. I don't know, but I know like I was able to look around and go, well, you can make a small game without a huge budget, without a huge team. And so how do I find a bunch of people who are roughly where I'm at and want to make something and you just get involved with your community? So I got, like I say, I ran game jams and got involved in various game dev meetups and stuff. And that put me front and center to a bunch of people. And that's how I met Paul and that, so that was really useful. But like it might be different now. And I think I think the key thing is to look around and try and see what would work, like what tools you have, what paths you have to your advantage. Like, for example, remote working didn't really exist. So for me, I was looking around to people who are physically around me and going, who of these can I work with? So, maybe there's a great opportunity to find people who are on remote spaces and that kind of thing. But like, I mean, that's in some ways it's like asking a dinosaur how to just survive in the modern world. It's just I'm the wrong person to ask that. Just find your opportunities, make your opportunities really, and those opportunities can be different than anything I can fathom at the moment. So I am old and set on my way. I'm not that old, but I'm set on my way.
And a much easier question for you. Where can people find out more about the Darkside Detective, Backside of the Moon?
Yeah, on the 13th of every month, you go outside and howl at the moon. A raven will come and drop a zip disk at your house. You got to find a way to use that obsolete technology. Failing that, probably just go on the internet. If you look us up we have a website. You can go to that. You can go to spookydoorway.com, and that will point you to all the social media things that we have. I think Blue Sky is the one that we have. You can go to that then as a result. We have a Discord. I'm aware of that. Don't know how you find it, but if you can find it, you can go there and ask us questions. They're probably the ways to do it.
Would that be Spooky Doorway Discord or Darkside Detective Discord?
And so you can even ask us questions about Blake Manor and I guess witchcraft if you want. We know the answers, but you can ask it. But yeah, Discord and Blue Sky, I think we're on those things. I'm aware we're on those things.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really appreciate everybody who tuned in for this. I really appreciate Spooky Doorway for taking the time for this interview. I really appreciate Treasa and Dave McCabe for giving me this interview. I love these games. I loved Sounds of Blake Manor last year. And guys, stay tuned. If you missed any of this, you need to head over to shacknews.com because that's where you're going to find out more about what we've got going on. You can also find us on YouTube, especially if you missed this interview, because we have our YouTube channels at Shack News Interviews, and Shack News VODs. The original Shack News is where you're going to find our gameplay. The Interviews channel is where you're going to find interviews just like this. And then the VODs is if you miss one of our streams, head over there. You'll find our any of our live streams there. Whether you miss a Steve Tendo show, a Shack Central, whether you miss a Dealer's Choice, you're going to find them over there on the VODs channel. And then finally, you can find us on the socials at Shack News on Twitter, Shack News on Facebook, Shack News Media on Instagram, Shack News on TikTok, Shack News on Blue Sky. And thanks again, everybody. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy this. I really enjoy doing these episodes. They're very rare, very special, but I'm glad to bring them to you. And until next time, thank you for watching. This has been TJ Denzer, Senior News Editor for ShackNews.com, sharing with you once again. Have fun, stay hungry, play more indies, y'all. We'll see you next week. First off, thank you guys for